In 146 BC, Rome wasn't just aiming to win a war, it sought to erase Carthage from history. After surviving two brutal wars, Carthage stood defiant once more. But this time, Rome's goal was total annihilation. This is the story of Carthage's last stand, where defeat meant extinction. After the devastating losses of the Second Punic War, in the imposition of the Treaty of 201 BC, Carthage was a shadow of its former self. The treaty stripped Carthage of its overseas territories, forced it to dismantle its navy, and imposed crippling war indemnities. Despite these harsh conditions, Carthage managed to recover economically through trade and agriculture, gradually rebuilding its wealth and influence. However, Carthage's recovery remained a source of concern for Rome, which continued to view the city as a potential threat. Meanwhile, King Massinissa of Numidia, a Roman ally, seized every opportunity to expand his territory at Carthage's expense. Over the years, Massinissa encroached on Carthaginian land, provoking repeated conflicts. However, under the terms of the treaty, Carthage was prohibited from waging war, even if attacked, without first gaining Rome's permission. Bound by this restriction, Carthage found itself unable to defend its own territory, further aggravating tensions and leaving the city increasingly vulnerable to Massinissa's ambitions. By 149 BC, Carthage, in desperation, launched a military campaign against Numidia, breaking the terms of the treaty. Rome quickly seized this violation as a pretext for war. The influential Roman statesman, Cato the Elder, who had long advocated for Carthage's destruction, famously declared, "Carthago delenda est," meaning, Carthage must be destroyed. His words echoed the growing sentiment in Rome. Carthage's existence itself was now seen as a threat, and Rome was determined to eliminate it once and for all. Carthage's decision to launch a military campaign against King Massinissa of Numidia in 149 BC was a clear breach of the treaty established after the Second Punic War. By taking military action without Rome's permission, Carthage gave Rome the perfect excuse to declare war. Rome, which had long harbored suspicions about Carthage's resurgence, quickly seized the opportunity to justify the third and final confrontation. In response, Rome imposed harsh demands on Carthage. To avert immediate destruction, Carthage was forced to surrender 200,000 sets of armor, 2,000 catapults, and their entire fleet of around 50 warships, a crippling blow that stripped the city of its defense capabilities. Believing that compliance might prevent further conflict, Carthage handed over these supplies to the Romans. However, after receiving the warships, Rome took a further humiliating step. The fleet was burned in Utica's harbor as a dramatic display of Roman dominance. This public destruction of Carthage's navy shattered any remaining hopes of peaceful resolution and enraged the Carthaginians. However, Rome's final ultimatum was even more shocking. They demanded that Carthage abandon their city on the coast and relocate inland, at least 10 miles from the sea. This ultimatum was designed to dismantle Carthage's trade and maritime identity, effectively erasing the city's wealth and power. At that time, Carthage had over 100,000 inhabitants, a thriving population that relied on its coastal position for trade and economic survival. For the Carthaginians, relocation was an unthinkable act that would result in the destruction of their city's cultural and economic heart. Faced with this impossible choice, Carthage chose to stand and fight rather than surrender their city. Soon after, Roman forces led by Manius Malinius landed at Utica, just north of Carthage, and began preparations for the siege that would bring the conflict to its bloody conclusion. The Roman invasion of 149 BC saw an army of 50,000 soldiers land at Utica, 35 kilometers north of Carthage. Supported by 50 warships, the Romans expected a swift victory, but they quickly encountered serious difficulties as they underestimated the strength of Carthage's defenses. The city's fortifications, including its towering walls, and the fierce determination of the Carthaginians, created a formidable challenge. During this period, Hasdrubal the Boarth rose as Carthage's key military leader. Tasked with organizing the city's defense, Hasdrubal marshaled a force that included newly freed slaves and citizens, bringing the total defenders to 30,000 men. He also maintained a separate field army stationed at Nephiris, south of the city, to harass Roman supply lines. Carthage's defense was innovative and fierce. Carthaginian forces used fire ships to damage Roman vessels during naval skirmishes, slowing the Roman siege. On land, Carthaginian troops launched effective guerrilla tactics, ambushing Roman forces and delaying their advance. A notable success for the Carthaginians came at the Battle of Lake Tunis, where they managed to inflict significant losses on the Roman forces. Despite these early setbacks, Roman forces regrouped under the emerging leadership of Scipio Aemilianus, who, although not yet in full command, began organizing and disciplining Roman forces. His strategic insight was crucial in tightening the Roman siege and preparing for the decisive phase of the conflict. The Romans suffered heavy losses in these initial confrontations, with thousands of troops killed in skirmishes and failed assaults, but they persisted in tightening their grip on the city. By 147 BC, after repeated failures and rising frustration in Rome, Scipio Aemilianus was appointed as consul and entrusted with leading the campaign against Carthage. Scipio, the adoptive grandson of Scipio Africanus, brought fresh discipline and strategic insight to the Roman forces, which had been plagued by setbacks and heavy losses during the early years of the siege. Upon taking command, Scipio immediately reorganized the Roman army, instilling strict discipline and enhancing coordination between the infantry, cavalry, and navy. He focused on tightening the siege by constructing new siege works and fortifications to fully surround Carthage, effectively cutting off the city's supply routes by land and sea. This forced the Carthaginians into a position of growing starvation and desperation. Scipio's naval blockade proved decisive, as it severely limited Carthage's access to food and reinforcements. In addition, Scipio launched a successful assault on the Carthaginian forces stationed at Epirus, south of Carthage. The victory at Epirus destroyed one of Carthage's last remaining armies outside the city, severing their hopes for external reinforcements and isolating the city even further. With Carthage's supplies running out and its forces critically weakened, Scipio had tightened the noose around the city, setting the stage for the final assault. In 146 BC, Scipio Aemilianus led a final assault with 30,000 Roman troops against Carthage. Roman forces breached the city's defenses, initiating brutal urban warfare in Carthage's narrow streets. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Carthaginian defenders, initially around 50,000, including civilians, fought fiercely to protect their city. Roman soldiers advanced slowly, facing constant ambushes as the defenders fought desperately, knowing there was no escape. The final resistance occurred at the Bursa, Carthage's citadel, where Hasdrubal and his remaining forces made a last stand. After days of fighting, Hasdrubal surrendered, but many Carthaginians chose to die rather than face enslavement, with families committing suicide as Roman forces closed in. Once the city was taken, the destruction of Carthage began. Roman soldiers systematically destroyed the city, burning buildings and reducing Carthage to rubble. Of the estimated 100,000 inhabitants left in Carthage, many were either killed or enslaved, effectively wiping the city from the map. As the city burned, Scipio Aemilianus reportedly wept at the sight of Carthage's destruction. According to Polybius, he foresaw that one day Rome might suffer a similar fate, reflecting on the temporary nature of empires. This final victory marked the end of the Third Punic War, ensuring Roman supremacy in the Mediterranean and the complete annihilation of Carthage. Following the destruction of Carthage in 146 BC, the city was formally annexed by Rome. The once great Carthaginian territories in North Africa became part of the new Roman province, Africa Proconsularis. This marked the complete erasure of Carthage as a political and cultural entity. In recognition of its loyalty during the war, Utica was rewarded by Rome, becoming the new regional capital and a symbol of the shift in power. The city's favorable position on the coast made it a vital hub for Roman administration and trade in the region. Rome swiftly moved to rebuild the region under its control. The strategically located Carthaginian territory became essential for Roman colonization and further expansion into Africa. With fertile lands and a key position in the Mediterranean, Carthage's former territory played a pivotal role in Rome's future conquests and economic growth. The destruction of Carthage in 146 BC marked not only the end of the Third Punic War, but also the complete erasure of Carthaginian society. Once a dominant force in the Mediterranean, Carthage was wiped from the political map, its territory annexed by Rome, and transformed into the province of Africa Proconsularis. This ensured Rome's uncontested dominance in the Western Mediterranean, eliminating its last major rival. With Carthage gone, Rome consolidated its power, shifting its focus towards expansion. Rome's victory set the stage for further conquests in Africa, Spain, and beyond, paving the way for the creation of a vast Roman Empire. The war also cemented Roman militaristic ambition, as it now had no significant opposition in the region. Though Hannibal had been dead for years, his legacy endured. His campaigns in the Second Punic War greatly influenced Roman military tactics and strategy, shaping the way Rome approached future conflicts. The destruction of Carthage also symbolized the end of Phoenician influence in the Mediterranean. The Punic Wars, which spanned over a century, showcased Rome's resilience and determination to rise as a superpower. They also serve as a powerful reminder of the temporary nature of empires. If you enjoyed exploring the dramatic end of Carthage and Rome's rise to power, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to stay updated. Let us know in the comments what ancient battle or empire you'd like to see next.